A new client signs. And then the boring part starts. You research their company, you write a welcome email, you build an onboarding checklist, you set up a doc. 45 minutes every single time before any real work happens. I moved that whole sequence onto a robot. Watch. I drop one row into a Google sheet. Client name, email. That's it. Now look at what comes back. A research summary on their company. A personalized welcome email, drafted and ready. A custom onboarding checklist built for their industry. And a Google Doc with the whole pack, saved automatically. One row in, a finished onboarding kit out, no code, and I didn't touch a single step in between. Here's exactly how I built it, and I'll show you every node so you can copy it today. If you run a service business, you already feel this one. The admin around getting a client started quietly eats your week. Each new client is the same set of tasks, just with the names swapped out. Research, write, format, organize. It's repetitive enough to automate, but it needs judgment, real writing, real summarizing, which is why classic automation tools always choked on it. They could move data around. They couldn't think. So you ended up doing it by hand, client after client, copying and pasting the same structure with slightly different words. And the worst part? It's the work that happens before the work. So it doesn't even feel like progress. It just feels like setup tax you pay every time someone says yes. That's the gap I'm closing today, and I'm doing it in about 15 minutes with a tool called Gumloop. Copy this workflow and you'll never hand-build an onboarding pack again. So what is Gumloop? It's a no-code, AI-native automation platform. You build on a visual canvas, drag nodes out, connect them with lines, and your workflow runs through them in sequence. Every flow starts with a trigger, a new row in a sheet, a schedule, or a manual click. Then come your logic steps, your app integrations, and the part that matters, AI nodes. Those nodes call models like GPT, Claude, and Gemini directly inside the flow. It connects to the internet and around 125 apps, so it's strong at the things old automation couldn't touch. Summarizing documents, pulling structure out of messy data, researching across sources, and generating real content. Now the honest part, because this channel doesn't sell you fairy tales. Gumloop has real trade-offs. First, there's a learning curve. Your very first build takes patience while you figure out how nodes pass data to each other and how to write prompts that behave. Give it one afternoon and it clicks, but it isn't instant. Second, pricing is credit-based. Every run, especially the AI nodes, burns credits, so high-volume or very frequent workflows can get expensive fast. Before you scale anything up, do the math on how many times a day it'll fire. And third, it's cloud-only. It runs online, there's no offline mode, so if you need something that works on your own machine with no internet, this isn't it. For an onboarding flow that runs a handful of times a week, none of that matters, and the cost is close to nothing. But I'd rather you go in with eyes open than get surprised by a bill. That's the deal. Huge leverage, with a couple of honest limits. Let's build. I'll number every node. Node 1, the trigger. On a fresh canvas, I drop a Google Sheets trigger and point it at a sheet with two columns, client name and email. I set it to fire on a new row. That's the on switch. The moment a row appears, the robot wakes up and grabs those two values to use downstream. This is the foundation of the whole thing. Every node after this can reach back and pull the client name or the email whenever it needs them. You connect once, and the data flows through the rest of the build for free. Node 2, the research. I drag in an AI node and wire it to the trigger. This is where Gumloop pulls ahead of normal automation. I give it web access and a prompt. Take the company name from the row, search the internet, and write me a short brief. What they do, their industry, their size, and one recent thing worth mentioning. The result is a tight research summary on a client I'd never heard of 2 seconds ago, with zero manual digging. No opening 12 tabs, no skimming an about page, no copying notes into a doc. The node does the reading and hands me the summary. Node 3, the welcome email. Another AI node, connected to the research one, the prompt. Using that brief, write a warm, personalized welcome email to the client by name. Reference their industry, keep it under 150 words, match my tone. Because this node can see the research above it, the email isn't generic. It actually mentions what the company does. That personalization is the whole difference between an email that lands and one that gets deleted. Node 4, the onboarding checklist. One more AI node. I tell it, Based on this client's industry, generate a tailored onboarding checklist, the documents I'll need from them, the access I'll need, and the first 3 milestones for week 1. A consultant gets a different list than an e-commerce brand, and because the AI read the research, it adjusts. I'm not picking from a template. The checklist is built for this specific client. Node 5, the save. Now I collect everything and put it somewhere I can actually use it. I add a Google Docs node and feed it all 3 outputs, the research, the email, the checklist, formatted into one clean onboarding document titled with the client's name. So instead of 3 loose pieces of text floating in the flow, I get a single tidy doc I can open, skim, and share with my team. And then I add an email node that drops the drafted welcome straight into my outbox, ready for one final read before I hit send. I'm deliberately leaving that last human step in. The AI drafts I approve. That's the right level of control for something a client actually receives. 5 nodes, connected left to right, that's the entire robot. Then I hit run, and here's the result. I type a new client into row 2 of the sheet, name and email, the 2 things I always have. The trigger catches it. The research node fires and pulls a company brief. The email node writes a personalized welcome. The checklist node builds a tailored list. And the doc node assembles the finished pack and saves it. You can watch it happen on the canvas, each node lighting up green as it finishes and hands off to the next. Start to finish. It's done before I could have finished reading the company's homepage myself. And look at the quality, because this is what sells it. The email isn't a Mad Libs template with a name dropped in. It references what the company actually does in my voice. The checklist isn't generic. A SaaS client and a local agency get genuinely different lists because the AI read the research first and adjusted. That's the part old automation could never do. A row went in. A complete personalized onboarding kit came out. The 45 minutes is now 30 seconds of me proofreading, and the consistency is better than when I did it by hand, because the robot never gets tired, never skips a step, and never forgets to send the welcome email on a busy Friday. One advanced tip before you go, because this is where it gets good. Right now I trigger it by hand by adding a row. Swap that first node for a scheduled trigger, and the flow runs on its own. Say, every morning it checks the sheet and processes any new clients from overnight. No human needed. And if you want to get sharper, add branch logic, a step that checks the client's industry and sends them down a different path. One onboarding flow for agencies, another for product companies, all inside the same build. That's how one simple automation grows into a system that quietly runs a chunk of your operations. That's the whole thing. A real onboarding robot, 5 nodes, no code, about 15 minutes to build once, and then free forever. And here's the mindset shift I want you to leave with. You don't automate by buying some giant all-in-one system. You automate one annoying task end to end until it's solved, then you move to the next one. Onboarding today. Next week, maybe it's your weekly client report or sorting your inbound leads. Same 5-node thinking, different job. If this saved you an afternoon, subscribe. I drop a new build like this every Monday and Thursday. And tell me in the comments, what's the one repetitive task in your business you'd hand to a robot first? Drop it below, and I might build it on the channel next.